My parents announced a harsh competition where only one child would inherit everything and the rest would be cut off. Because of that, I ultimately reported them to CPS. When I was 16, my parents called the four of us into the living room and revealed the competition. My father stood near the fireplace with his hands clasped behind his back, almost like he was giving a corporate briefing. My mother sat in her usual chair with a leather notepad open. She had kept notes on us for years, documenting everything we did. I always assumed it was part of her obsession with organization. Now I realize it was something entirely different. My father explained that raising 3 children and investing in all of us was, in their words, not efficient. Instead of dividing their estate and attention evenly, they would focus all their resources on the child who proved most successful, the one who earned it. Whoever didn't win would be removed from the will, cut off financially, ... and expected to leave the family once they turned 18. Lucas, my younger brother, was 14 and didn't fully understand. He asked if this was some kind of game show and when we'd find out the winner. My older sister, Sophia, who was 18, turned completely pale. She had plans for an expensive private college, and our parents had promised to cover it. My twin brother, Noah, sat frozen beside me, gripping his legs tightly. I could feel how tense he was. Dad went on outlining the rules like he was presenting a business strategy. We would be graded on academics, extracurriculars, leadership qualities, and something he called life readiness skills. Mom would update the rankings every month. Each of us would receive a score out of 100 that would influence everything, from our allowance to whether we were included in family activities. The top-ranked child would get benefits and long-term investment. The rest would only receive the minimum support legally required until they were officially off from the family. Mom opened her notebook and showed us the first set of rankings. Sophia was first with a 92. I was second with an 83. Noah placed third with a 67. Lucas was last with a 60. She had created these scores using an elaborate formula she had developed over the past year without telling us. Grades were worth 35%, extracurriculars 30%, household responsibilities 15%, and character evaluation 20%. That last category was entirely subjective and based on her personal observations. When I asked what would happen if we refused to participate, my dad's expression turned cold in a way I had never seen. He said we didn't have a choice. We lived in his home, used his resources, and followed his rules. That night, after our parents went to bed, the four of us met in Sophia's room. She was angry and scared, pacing back and forth. She had always been the favored child, and now her position felt threatened. Lucas was crying quietly, confused about why our parents were doing this. Noah sat on the floor against the wall, staring blankly. I suggested we all ignore the game and continue as normal, but Sophia dismissed that immediately. If we didn't participate, she said, she would automatically win and the rest of us would be eliminated. Noah reminded us that refusing to compete could lead to even lower scores because Mom could penalize our character. We were trapped in a system designed to pit us against each other. Within the first week, everything changed. Mom posted the monthly rankings on the refrigerator. Sophia's name was written in green at the top. Mine was in blue underneath. Noah's was in yellow. Lucas's name was last, in red. Seeing our names displayed like that shifted how we treated each other. Sophia stopped helping Lucas with homework because his improvement could reduce her score. Noah stayed up until 1:30 a.m. doing extra credit assignments to catch up. I checked on my siblings constantly, calculating whether I was falling behind. Our allowances matched our rankings. Sophia received $220. I got $120. Noah got $60. Lucas received $25. When he asked why it had dropped from the $60 he used to get, Dad said resources needed to go to the child with the most potential. School became a constant comparison. Sophia and I were both juniors, and every grade felt like another weapon in the competition. When she got a 95 on a history test and I got a 91, she couldn't hide her satisfaction as she mentally worked out how it would affect her ranking. When I made the debate team and she didn't get callbacks, she sat in the car fuming the whole way home. Our parents had always valued academic success, but now it felt like a rigid system we lived under. Every accomplishment I had threatened her standing, and every success she had pushed me further from security. Noah, who was in a different grade, didn't compete directly at school, but I could see the pressure wearing him down. He had always been artistic, not academically driven, but now he forced himself to fit a mold that didn't reflect who he really was. The character evaluation category quickly became a tool for control. Mom deducted points for things like a messy room, speaking out of turn, or showing a bad attitude. These rules were vague and could be used however she wanted. Noah lost 5 points after he told Dad he thought the system was unfair. I lost 3 for forgetting to take out the trash. Sophia realized early that the best way to stay on top was to be completely obedient. She became a version of herself that didn't seem real, always cheerful, always helpful, always agreeable. Lucas struggled most with character scores because he was still young and acted like a normal 14-year-old. He lost points for leaving toys out, being noisy, or watching too much TV. Typical behavior punished as failure. Sophia's boyfriend broke up with her 3 months into the competition because she was consumed by maintaining her ranking. She had stopped spending weekends with him, dropped social plans, and avoided anything that didn't add to her resume. When he told her she wasn't the same person, she didn't seem upset. She simply said being single gave her more time to focus on winning. It felt like the sister I knew was fading. Noah began having panic attacks late at night. I would hear him struggling to breathe in the bathroom and sit outside the door helping him calm down. He was terrified of placing last and being cut off entirely. Our parents made it clear that the child who finished last would get nothing, no support, no college fund, and no place in the family. Noah still had 2 years before adulthood, and the idea of being alone at 18 terrified him. I tried to reassure him, but he knew I couldn't protect him from our parents. Household contributions became another competitive battleground. Sophia woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to clean the kitchen before anyone else. I started doing yard work that no one asked for just to gain points. Noah completed all of Lucas's chores because Lucas couldn't meet Mom's expectations. Mom kept detailed notes, timing how long chores took and rating their quality. The house had never been cleaner, but it felt cold and tense. 6 months later, Lucas began wetting the bed again, something he hadn't done since he was 7. Being last every month crushed him. One afternoon, I found him crying in the garage. He said he wished he hadn't been born so our parents wouldn't be disappointed. That broke something in me. I confronted my parents and begged them to stop. I explained what the pressure was doing to Lucas. Dad showed no concern. He simply said Lucas needed to learn that life was full of competition and hardship, and if he couldn't handle pressure now, he wouldn't survive as an adult. Extracurriculars became another layer of stress. Sophia joined every club she could find. I chose fewer activities but aimed for leadership positions, eventually becoming debate team president and quiz bowl captain. Noah struggled because his real passions, art and music, didn't score well. He stopped doing what he loved just to earn points in areas he disliked. Lucas tried joining sports teams but was usually cut because he was small for his age, reinforcing the idea that he was considered a failure. Mom's scoring system focused only on results, awards, titles, measurable success. Effort didn't matter. After a year of competition, Sophia was accepted into a prestigious Yale summer program. It would significantly boost her score and look impressive on applications. The program cost $10,000, and our parents could afford it easily. But Dad announced at dinner that if Sophia attended, there wouldn't be enough money for the rest of us to do any summer activities. He asked us to vote. Sophia immediately chose Yale. Lucas voted for fairness because he wanted to attend soccer camp. Noah and I were stuck in the middle, knowing someone would lose either way. I voted for equal distribution because I couldn't take that away from Lucas. Noah agreed. Dad looked disappointed in all of us except Sophia. In the end, none of us got to do anything. According to Dad, since we couldn't make a clear decision, we forfeited the opportunity. Sophia didn't go to Yale. Lucas didn't go to soccer camp. Noah didn't attend the art program he loved. I missed the debate institute. Instead, we stayed home doing more chores while our parents lectured us about consequences. That's when I realized the competition was never about choosing one successful child. It was about teaching us to sacrifice each other, prioritize ourselves, and accept the idea that someone must lose for another to win. We had failed to meet that expectation, and our parents punished us for staying united. Noah's mental health declined rapidly. He lost weight, barely ate, and stopped doing art entirely. He stayed in his room most of the time, forcing himself to study subjects he hated just to raise his score. When I asked how he was doing, he'd answer, "Fine," in a dull voice. I tried to tell our parents something was seriously wrong, but they dismissed my concerns as an attempt to manipulate the rankings. Mom said he was experiencing normal stress and needed to push harder. Dad told me to worry about my own score. When my grades surpassed Sophia's, Mom increased the weight of the character category, giving her more control to lower my score. When Noah briefly passed me in extracurriculars, she changed the formula to prioritize leadership titles. It became obvious that Mom had already decided Sophia would win. The scoring system was a disguise to make it look fair, but we couldn't prove it. Mom kept her calculations locked in her office. Lucas entered his senior year, acting in ways that weren't like him at all. He got into fights, talked back, and stopped turning in schoolwork. His grades dropped to D's and F's. When our parents confronted him, he said there was no point in trying because he would never catch up. He realized that even perfect scores wouldn't make up for his age or previous rankings. So he stopped caring. It was destructive, but also the only form of control he had left. One day, Mr. Whitfield, the school counselor, called me into his office. He had noticed unusual changes in me. My grades were high, but I had abandoned hobbies I used to enjoy for others I clearly didn't care about. He asked if things were okay at home, and for the first time, I thought about telling an adult. But what could I say? My parents weren't breaking the law. They provided food and shelter. They weren't hurting us physically. They were just running a competition to decide which child deserved to stay in the family. Mr. Whitfield asked me how I would describe things to someone who didn't live in our home. I told him everything was fine, that I was only trying to strengthen my college applications. He looked at me with concern, as though he knew I wasn't being honest, but couldn't make me open up. That night, I went to Noah's room and found him holding a bottle of our mother's sleeping pills. He had already taken 5 and was staring at the bottle, thinking about taking more. I grabbed the pills away and shook him, asking what he was doing. He said he couldn't continue. He couldn't handle waking up every day knowing he might fail, and he couldn't survive another 2 years in a competition designed to break 3 of us. I told him he wasn't the one failing. Our parents were failing us. I stayed with him the entire night to make sure he didn't try again. In the morning, I went to our parents and told them what had happened. My father said Noah was being manipulative and using suicidal behavior to get attention. Mom deducted 10 character points for emotional instability. They didn't take him to a doctor or therapist. They didn't stop the competition. They simply punished him for collapsing under the pressure they had created. After that, I began documenting everything. I kept a notebook hidden in my closet where I wrote down the monthly rankings, sudden formula changes, unrealistic standards, and the emotional impact on my brothers. I didn't know what I would eventually do with the notes, but I wanted a record, something that proved the situation was as unreasonable as it felt. One day, Sophia found the notebook while searching for something in my room. She read it and confronted me, accusing me of trying to tear the family apart. She threatened to tell our parents if I showed anyone the journal. When I asked how she justified what they were doing, she said she was protecting her future. She claimed she had worked too hard to let me jeopardize her chances. As the competition neared its 2nd year, the long-term effects became impossible to ignore. Sophia developed an eating disorder. Convinced that maintaining a specific weight gave her control, Lucas had been suspended twice for fighting and met with the school counselor weekly for anger issues. Noah slept fewer than 4 hours a night and developed stress-related dermatitis. I stopped enjoying anything, always analyzing whether my actions would help or hurt my ranking. All of us were performing versions of ourselves that our parents had shaped. Over time, we lost sight of who we actually were beneath their expectations. Before my senior year, our parents announced that the rankings would continue through college. They would pay full tuition for the top-ranked child, half for 2nd place, only limited help for 3rd, and nothing for the 4th. That meant the competition would extend 4 more years, keeping us under their control into our early 20s. Sophia was thrilled. It meant financial independence if she stayed at the top. The rest of us realized we would remain tied to them as long as they controlled the money. I started researching scholarships and financial aid, preparing for the possibility of covering everything on my own. Noah began doing the same. Lucas, still only 13, couldn't think that far ahead, but I could see how overwhelmed he felt at the idea that this system would define his whole adolescence. At the start of my senior year, Sophia held 90 points. I had 84. Noah had 82, and Lucas had 58. The 32-point gap between first and last made it nearly impossible to catch up before Sophia turned 18. She had essentially secured her win through consistent performance and Mom's favoritism. Still, our parents continued the competition, insisting we keep striving and proving ourselves. I applied to colleges that offered full scholarships. Noah focused on schools with strong financial aid programs. We were planning our exits while still trapped in the system because we had no other choice. In December, something changed. Lucas stopped going to school entirely. He would wake up, get dressed, leave the house with his backpack, and spend the day in the public library or wandering the city. He came home at the usual time, so our parents wouldn't know. After 3 weeks, the school informed them of his absences. The confrontation was intense. Dad yelled at him for ruining his future. Mom lowered his score to 52, the lowest any of us had ever received. Lucas stood there without reaction, blank-faced. After they left, I asked him why he stopped going. He said nothing mattered anymore. Nothing he did would change a system set against him, so he didn't see the point. I told him it mattered to me, but he walked away. That was my breaking point. I gathered my journal, the evidence of score changes, and notes about our psychological decline. I then scheduled an appointment with a family therapist recommended by my school counselor. Her name was Dr. Simmons. I spent 2 hours explaining everything. She listened quietly, taking notes in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of my mother. After I finished, she asked if I felt physically safe at home. I said yes, we were not being neglected or physically harmed. Then she asked if I felt emotionally safe. I didn't know how to respond. How do you measure emotional safety when you're constantly judged, ranked, and told that 3 of you don't deserve to be part of the family? Dr. Simmons explained that what my parents were doing was a form of psychological abuse, conditional love, and favoritism that could cause lasting damage. She asked if I wanted her to report it to Child Protective Services. I sat there, unsure whether reporting would help or make everything worse. CPS cases can be complicated, and they don't always end in positive outcomes. We could be separated, which might be worse than staying together under our parents. But if I didn't report it, nothing would change. Lucas would keep declining. Noah would keep taking pills. Sophia would continue starving herself. And I would keep trying to escape while my siblings suffered. Dr. Simmons told me she was a mandated reporter. If she believed we were in danger, she had to report it whether I agreed or not. She asked if I thought my siblings were in danger. I thought about Noah with the pill bottle, Lucas's empty stare, and Sophia's thin face. I said yes. The CPS investigation started the following week. A caseworker named Patricia Okonkwo arrived unannounced and requested private conversations with each of us. Our parents were furious, demanding to know who had reported them and what lies had been told. Patricia stayed calm and professional, explaining that she was there to ensure our safety and overall well-being. She interviewed each of us in separate rooms, asking about our daily routines and how our parents treated us. I told her everything, showed her my documentation journal, and explained the rating system thoroughly. Sophia defended our parents, claiming they were simply motivating us to reach our full potential. Noah and Lucas supported my account, each in their own way. Patricia spent 3 hours in our home, taking photos of the ranking charts on the refrigerator and requesting copies of Mom's scoring notebooks. My parents were careful to present the system as strict but legal parenting. They emphasized that we were fed, housed, educated, and not physically harmed. They framed the competition as a structured way to teach us about real-world pressure. Mom's detailed notes were used as proof of their involvement rather than manipulation. Patricia spoke with our teachers, our pediatrician, and relatives. Most of them described us as high-achieving children from a disciplined, successful household. The contrast between what people saw publicly and what we lived privately made it nearly impossible to prove harm. Patricia told me in private that she believed me, but she didn't have legal grounds to remove us. The environment was damaging, she said, but not illegal. She recommended family therapy and said she would check in periodically, but she couldn't force our parents to stop the competition. After the CPS investigation ended without action, my parents directed all their anger toward me. They knew I had reported them, even though I never admitted it. Mom dropped my score to 65, lower than Noah for the first time, citing serious character deficiencies. Dad told me I had betrayed the family and shown why I didn't deserve support. Sophia stopped speaking to me altogether, acting as though I had personally harmed her by involving CPS. Only Noah and Lucas understood why I did it, but they were too afraid to defend me publicly. To protect my siblings, I had sacrificed my standing in the competition and damaged my relationship with our parents. And it changed nothing. The rankings continued. The psychological pressure continued. We were still stuck. College acceptance letters arrived in March. I was admitted to 3 schools offering full scholarships, which meant I could leave without relying on my parents. Sophia was accepted into 7 prestigious universities, and my parents hosted a celebration for her, announcing I had one final conversation with Sophia before leaving for college. I asked if winning was worth losing her relationships with her brothers, whether seeing Lucas unravel and Noah nearly harm himself mattered. She insisted I was exaggerating, said everything was fine, and claimed we would all eventually appreciate our parents pushing us. I asked if she truly believed that, or if she was just trying to justify her involvement in their behavior. She accused me of jealousy and bitterness over not winning, and told me to focus on my own life instead of trying to pull her down. We haven't spoken since. When I moved into my dorm that August, she didn't help me pack or say goodbye. Neither did my parents. Only Noah and Lucas were there when I left, and we cried together in the driveway because we knew I was escaping, but they were still trapped. College created physical distance, but mentally I couldn't stop worrying about my brothers. Noah emailed updates about the rankings and about Lucas's emotional state. Lucas was diagnosed with depression and prescribed medication, but our parents viewed it as another failure and deducted character points for needing mental health care. Noah counted the days until he turned 18 and could legally leave. I sent him money from my work-study job whenever I could, knowing he would need help paying for school because our parents refused to contribute. Patricia continued her monthly check-ins, but nothing changed because nothing technically illegal was happening. Just 3 children being damaged by a system designed to make their worth conditional. I didn't return home the summer after my freshman year. I stayed on campus to work and take classes. My parents emailed me, saying they were disappointed but not surprised, citing my character flaws. Sophia posted photos online from their family vacation without me. The 3 of them stood smiling on an expensive beach trip. Lucas looked thin and unhappy. Sophia looked proud, and Noah looked distant. The winner posed with our parents as though she had earned her place through merit rather than endurance. I felt a mix of loss, anger, and relief. I mourned the family I wished I had, resented the system that broke us, and felt grateful that I was no longer part of it, even though it meant being erased from their lives. Noah turned 18 that October, during my sophomore year. He called me from a bus stop at 3 a.m. He said he had left, packed a bag and walked out while everyone was asleep. He planned to reach his college town early to find housing and a job before classes began. Our parents didn't try to stop him or even contact him afterward. They simply updated the rankings to show 2 children instead of 3. With the percentages adjusted, Lucas fell even lower. Sophia still led with 90 points. Despite not living at home for almost a year, I remained in second with 75. Lucas was last with 53. The competition continued, even though half the participants were gone. Throughout my sophomore year, Lucas called me every night. He talked about school, his homework, or random things. I could tell he just wanted to talk to someone who cared about him, not his score. At 14, he was living with our parents and Sophia, all of whom treated him as the disappointment. He told me they sometimes excluded him from family dinners, saying he could eat in his room because he wasn't contributing meaningfully to conversations. He mentioned that Sophia had her own car, while he still took the bus everywhere. He also said his birthday passed with only a letter from our parents. No celebration, no gifts. He was slowly being erased from the family while still living in the same house, and from 300 miles away, there was little I could do to protect him. The breaking point happened during Lucas's first year of high school. He called me at midnight, crying so hard that I could hardly understand him. When he finally calmed down, he told me he had found our mother's master planning document on her computer. It was a detailed outline showing that once Sophia turned 22 and graduated from college, our parents planned to formally disown the rest of us. They had already prepared legal documents removing Noah, Lucas, and me from their will. They had drafted letters for extended family explaining why they were cutting off 3 of their 4 children. They even calculated how much money they would save by investing in only Sophia. They had been preparing this for 3 years, and the competition had been a way to make us participate in our own removal. Lucas read parts of the letter to me over the phone, and hearing our parents describe us as poor investments and failed experiments made me feel sick. I drove home the next morning, skipping classes I couldn't afford to miss. I picked up Noah from his college town on the way. Together, we went to the house and demanded a family meeting. When I confronted our parents with what Lucas had discovered, they remained calm. I asked how they could intentionally harm 3 children while elevating 1. My father replied that we had been given many chances to prove our value and had not done so. He said it would be irresponsible to continue putting resources into children who had not shown sufficient return. My mother added that Sophia had earned her place through discipline and excellence, while the rest of us had shown we didn't care enough about our family to compete. Sophia sat silently, her expression unreadable, neither defending us nor challenging them. I told our parents they had inflicted emotional harm on 3 children through constant competition and conditional approval. I said I had years of documentation showing the psychological impact and that I was prepared to show it to lawyers, therapists, and the media if they refused to stop. My father dismissed it, saying I had no legal basis, no evidence of criminal conduct, and no ability to challenge them. He was right about that, but I had something he didn't expect. I had been recording the conversation on my phone from the moment we sat down. In that recording, they admitted they planned to disown 3 of their children based on a manipulated ranking system. It wasn't illegal, but it clearly showed their true intentions. I replayed the recording and watched their expressions change. I told them I wanted the competition ended immediately. Lucas's living conditions improved and Mandato. Family therapy with an outside counselor. Otherwise, I would share the recording with everyone we knew, our church community, extended family, and my parents' coworkers. I wasn't proud of using leverage, but it was the only way to protect my younger brother. After a long silence, my father agreed. That day, the ranking charts came down. The monthly evaluations stopped. Lucas finally received basic privacy and respect, things he had been denied for years. We started family therapy the next week, but my parents spent most sessions trying to convince the therapist they were misunderstood. The damage, however, had already been done. Sophia finished college with full parental support and immediately cut ties with me, Noah, and Lucas. She accepted the belief that we were failures who would hold her back, prioritizing our parents' approval over her siblings. I lost my older sister to the competition, even though I had technically won the final confrontation. Noah took 6 years to finish college because he worked full-time to pay for it without help. Lucas, now 16, lived in a household where the competition had officially ended, but the favoritism still lingered. He counted the days until he could leave for college and not return. I graduated with debt, having spent years working 2 jobs and taking extra semesters to cover costs since full tuition was far beyond my reach. The 3 of us survived, but our parents' choices left lasting scars. 3 years after the competition ended, I received a call from Patricia Okonkwo, the CPS caseworker who had tried to help us. She was writing a paper on long-term psychological maltreatment in high-achieving families and asked permission to include our story anonymously. I agreed and spent 2 hours recounting the competition and its impact. She said she had seen many similar cases, families where parents built complex systems that pitted children against each other under the banner of motivation. Most cases went unreported because the behavior was subtle and disguised as high standards. She wanted to create better guidelines to identify and intervene in such situations. I gave her my documentation journal, the recording, and permission to use anything needed. If our experience could prevent another family from going through the same suffering, then perhaps it had some purpose. Lucas left for college last year on a full scholarship to a university 2,500 miles away. He called me from his dorm room, crying with relief that he was finally free. He is now working with a trauma therapist and building an identity independent of rankings and competition. Noah works in tech and has cut ties with our parents. I talk to him once a week, and we are slowly rebuilding our relationship outside the framework of rivalry. We are learning to care for each other without measuring our worth. It is uncomfortable at times, but healing. Sophia writes occasionally to explain why she chose our parents over us, but I no longer respond. She made her choice, and I've accepted the loss. I'm 24 now and still in therapy, processing the impact the competition had on my self-worth. Dr. Simmons, the first therapist I saw, helped me understand that I have always been enough, that my value isn't determined by rankings, approval, or achievements measured against others. That understanding comes and goes. Some days I believe it. Some days I still catch myself assessing whether I'm doing enough or achieving enough. The competition may have ended, but its effects remain. My parents created a system that taught us we deserved love only if we outperformed one another, and that message is deeply rooted in how we see ourselves. They still believe they did nothing wrong, In their view, they pushed us to succeed, and we are better because of it. They ignore the eating disorder, suicide attempt, depression, and destroyed family relationships. They don't acknowledge creating a structure where 3 children had to lose for 1 to win. They still see Sophia as the successful one, and the rest of us as those who simply didn't try hard enough. I know now I'll never get an apology or any recognition of the harm they caused. What I can do is stop the cycle, live by different values,